The famous competitive gamer Sun Tzu once said that if you know yourself and the enemy, you will wreck them easy every time. That is to say, knowledge is everything. Imagine you're playing Terraria. Your final objective is to kill God, but you can't even kill basic slimes because you don't have a wooden sword. Oh lord, if only I knew how to make a wooden sword. But here comes the official Terraria wiki with a beautiful article that shows you exactly how to make a wooden sword. In fact, it has articles on just about everything there is to know about this game. Now, what about War Thunder? It's a very complex game with hundreds of different vehicles, mechanics, and all that kind of stuff. A good wiki would be very useful here, especially for new players trying to figure out what is happening. And what do you know, there is a War Thunder wiki. It looks good and has pages covering most vehicles and mechanics. So here is the big question. Can you trust War Thunder Wiki? The short answer is no, you cannot. But you're here for the long answer, aren't you? In that case, buckle up, because we are going on a journey across the dumbest articles so you can see just how bad it actually is. Okay, so I'm going to show you some pages while talking over them, just so you can see how bad it gets on some of these, let's just say, suboptimal pages. So this is J7W, right? The Japanese funny Dorito plane. This plane, in general, is very bad. It has always been bad, and recently it has gotten even worse. So when somebody opens a wiki page like this one, they usually don't care about all this text in the middle, right? I mean, somebody might read it, but usually all people care about is this, pros and cons, and this is mainly what we're going to be analyzing. Now, I'm not going to be talking about pros too much. Basically, most of this is irrelevant, or incorrect, I should say, because this plane has been power crept very heavily. What interests me here is cons. Now, these are alright, nothing much to say here. However, what is this? Armament may detonate. What armament? What are you talking about, man? Do they mean that your armament, the guns on the plane, can detonate? Because if so, in this game, armament of aircraft cannot detonate. Cannons and machine guns, they are indestructible. They always work, you cannot damage them, you cannot destroy them. What do you mean armament may detonate? Okay, so this funny fan fiction aside, this cons list really doesn't really tell you anything. What it should say is that this plane is outperformed by everything it faces. And, even more importantly, this cons list should say that the flaps on this plane are completely broken. They are broken in two ways. First of all, they don't work at any sort of useful speeds. When you go above 300 kilometers per hour in this plane, the flaps auto-retract and don't work anymore. Now, this might be a good thing, actually, because the second bug is the fact that these flaps work, how should I say it, in the opposite direction? I'm gonna demonstrate it to you in the live game right now. Okay, here we are in J7W test flight. Now, I'm going to switch my controls to full real, just so the instructor doesn't interfere with me whatsoever. Now, if I was in a normal plane with normal flaps, when I deploy them, they should pull my nose up, because, you know, flaps add lift. Now see what happens when I use flaps on this plane, and by the way, I'm flying so slowly because the flaps don't work at normal speeds. Check this out. My nose goes down, so these flaps work in reverse somehow. I don't know what is happening to this plane. Alright, for all of you jet enjoyers, MiG-21 BIS. This one has been brought to my attention by Nicole from my Discord server. So when you think of MiG-21 BIS, what do you think is its biggest disadvantage, its biggest flaw, weakness, whatever you want to call it? Any ideas? Of course it's energy retention. It's a delta wing, it bleeds all of its speed away when you turn. So let us look at pros and cons. Impressive climb rate, of course. Oh, what is this? Excellent energy retention, really? Do the people who write these articles actually fly the planes they're discussing? I'm not so sure. However, if you look at the page of the Swedish MiG-21, the exact same plane, by the way, exact same plane. Here, it doesn't have this pro anymore, even though it looks like most of them were just copy-pasted. Now, in the cons section, it has poor energy retention. So on this page, it says it has poor energy retention, which is correct. But on this page, it says that it has excellent energy retention. So which is it, man? Which is it? All right, to follow up on the jet topic, let's cover a missile. R-13M1. So this is like the Russian equivalent of an AIM-9J. Essentially the same missile, but a little bit better. Now, if you have used it in a real game, what could you tell me about its range? Now, I would say, even though I haven't played jets or R-13 in a very long time, I would say it's about like 3, maybe 4 kilometers, right? I mean, maybe more than that, but the circumstances would have to be perfect. Now, what do you think they say about the range of this missile? Any guesses? It's higher than what I said. All right. What is the range, you think? Oh, 24 kilometers. 20... What are they talking about, man? 24 kilometers. It's impossible for this missile to travel 24 kilometers. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. All right, back to props, my favorite. A7M2, a Japanese fighter. Now, you probably know that Japanese fighters turn well and they climb well, right? That's no secret. This one, though, it's also fast and it has good guns. What's stopping it from being a perfect fighter is the fact that it rolls very badly. It has a very, very bad roll rate. So let's see what it says about this plane in pros and cons. Now, first of all, what is this? What the fuck am I looking at? Who did this formatting? How am I supposed to read this? Anyway, so here it says, excellent roll rate. Excellent. I'm probably gonna put like an in-game footage of this plane rolling so you can see how excellent it is. And then if you look down, it says roll rate extremely slow. Again, which is it? Is it extremely slow or is it excellent? If this section is not even talking about the A7, why is it here? What is happening on this page, man? Now the glorious zero. I'm sure you all know and love this plane, no introduction needed. This page is alright, but I do want to cover it. First of all, again, this formatting. Gaijin, please lock away the person who does this. Do not let them write any more articles. This formatting is killing me. Second, why I wanted to cover this page in the first place. There's this myth in War Thunder that zeros compress when diving. Now, it probably stems from the fact that they do in real life, or did, I should say. In War Thunder, zeros do not compress when diving, and I'm gonna put some footage on the screen so you can see just how badly they compress. They do not. Now, the good old 109 G2. I really wanted to cover this page as an example of an outdated page. This one is so good because this plane back in the day had a cult status, a cult following. It was regarded as the best 109 in the game, as the best Messerschmitt ever. Now, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but even back in the day, F4 was better, and it's still better. However, this is not so relevant. The thing is, this article, if you actually read it, is so full of love and appreciation for this plane. The guy who wrote it, he was definitely like an OG, and he loved this plane. So when we look at pros and cons, he glazes this plane infinitely. This is excellent, this is good, and even when he writes the cons, he still cannot stop praising this plane. He starts by saying that this plane has bad dogfighting characteristics, but then says that it has high maneuverability, which lures inexperienced users to engage in turn fights. You can tell he loves this plane, but the unfortunate truth is, this plane fell off. These days, this plane is mid at best. So when you look at all this, don't get too excited. You have to fight stuff like XP50, Yak-3, Pyramyrsky, and these are much better planes than the G2. All in all, this article is a relic of the past. It does not reflect the current state of the game, and there are so many pages on this wiki which are like this. Now, Seafire Mark III. What the hell is this plane? You've probably never even heard about it, or maybe you've seen it like once or twice. Now, I wanted to cover this page not because of how incorrect it is, but because of how correct it is. This plane sucks. That's the TLDR. This plane has the performance of the Mark 5C Spitfire, and 5C is only 5.0 because it has 4 cannons. If it didn't, it would be like 4.0. This plane has 2 cannons, and it's 5.0. Why? I don't know. I can't tell you what happened. So that's the context. Now, when we look at pros and cons, the only pro is that the engine does not overheat easily, and all rest is cons, which is, accurate. And you know the best part? This is not even a pro. This engine overheats at the exact same speed as other Spitfires, so you might as well remove it. This is probably one of the funniest pages on War Thunder Wiki, just because of how accurate it is. Now, Spitfire Mark 22. This one has been brought to my attention by Dead Inside, the best head-on duelist in this game. For context, this is one of those late Spitfires with a Griffin engine. It's fast, it's very good at high altitudes. It doesn't turn as well as the earlier Spitfires, but it still turns very well. Now, what would you think would be the greatest enemy of this Spitfire? Any ideas? Well, usage in combat. Oh, it's 109 G14. Why? Now, the first problem with this Spitfire cannot physically see a G14 in a battle. It's 6.7, while the 109 is 5.3, so we are already off the mark here. Now, the other issue is that this Spitfire 100% turns better than the G14, so what the hell are they talking about here? Now, so I would say, but I actually know what's going on here, and I'm gonna tell you a little secret, or more of a history lesson, I suppose. Back when G14 came out, it was actually very, very maneuverable, but it lasted only, I think, about a week or so. Afterwards, G14 has been nerfed, and it is now no different from the G6, which is 4.7. However, this 1 week of super maneuverability has stuck with people, and I think a lot of people still think that G14 is this turn-fighting 109. It's not. Now, what's extra funny, if we go to the page of the G14 itself, and this was brought up by Nicole once again, we can look at the enemies worth noting in this article. And what do you know? It lists Spitfire Mark 22. Of course it does. Again, these two planes cannot see each other anymore. Now, while we are on the topic of the G14, it sure has a lot of pros, huh? Outstandingly high climb rate, energy retention. Why don't you mention anywhere that this plane is the exact same plane as the G6 now? Just at a higher BR. Yes, the performance is a tiny bit better, a tiny bit. But by all accounts, this is a G6 at a higher BR. Now, this G14 mystery never ends on this wiki. This page was brought to my attention by RNGesus, and G14AS is essentially a G14 with an engine that is tuned to higher altitudes. So what does that mean? Well, that means that this plane is a G6, which is a 4.7 plane, but with an engine that only becomes better at like 5 kilometers altitude, and it's at 5.3. So this plane's trash. But of course, if we scroll down, what's this? In capable hands, this plane can be one of the best air superiority fighters, outperforming BF-109K4 or P-51H? Okay, who writes these articles? I think these people actually need to be put to jail. In what world does this piece of garbage outperform the P-51H? And, this article goes on to say that, oh, this plane actually has a lot of pros. Oh yeah, it's so good. It's better than the G6. No, it's not. It only becomes better at like 5k, and even then not by much. This plane is over-tiered. This plane is bad. So, Typhoon Mark 1A. This plane is armed with 12 rifle caliber machine guns. The pea shooters. So what do you think would be the best way to use these pea shooters? Well, probably you would try to snipe with them, right? Target the cockpit, or the engines on the bomber, or the wing, something along those lines. Well, the author of this article, he's cooking. He's got some ideas. So what's he cooking? Well, let's see. Another plausible idea is to uninstall the upgrade for the machine guns to make them less accurate and turn the plane into a flying shotgun. Wow. Now, I can't get too mad at this because this is funny. The guy is just messing around, I guess. But if you're trying to actually play this game properly, do not uninstall weapon upgrades. You need accuracy. You need your guns to shoot where you're aiming. I guess this can be funny for like a one round, but don't do this. Okay, Yak 1B. The plane itself is not important for what I'm about to tell you. What is important is the misconception in this page. My favorite misconception about Soviet planes. Let's see what it says. So there is a section which has a very good name, Tips from the Aces. And what do the Aces tell us? Well, they tell us that if you stay below 2000 meters, you can negate all of your cons and disadvantages. So the general idea here, and I hear this everywhere, is that Soviet planes suck at high altitudes, so just don't climb. And sure, if you don't climb, your engine will always work at 100% potential, and you will never rip your wings, but you will die. A lot. If someone is above you, it doesn't matter how well your engine performs. You will die unless they are, like, really bad. What they actually should be saying here is that in Soviet planes, you still do climb, you still get that altitude in case you need it, but you prefer not to fight at high altitudes. In any case, I think you get the idea. Do not stay below 2000 meters, or you will get whacked. J21A. Now, this is a great example of an article that has a lot of words, but doesn't actually say anything. Now, I suspect the person who did this has flown this plane like 2 to 3 times maybe, at best, and then decided, good enough, time to fill the article. So first off, we go down and see what they think are enemies worth noting in this plane. BF-109 series, sure, I agree. F4 is very dangerous and should be taken seriously. But then P-47s, why? P-47s are not really relevant anymore. They are at their best at high altitudes, but people don't really fight at high altitudes anymore. So why are they here? I don't know. And then MB-157? That is so random. Why is it here? It's an okay plane, but what? Where's the XP-50? Where's all the other meta planes? Now, what I suspect happened here is the person who wrote this article played 3 games, died 3 times to these 3 planes. So, you know, game 1 died to P-47, game 2 died to MB-157, game 3 died to BF-109. So, you know, in lack of any other experiences, he wrote these 3 as the enemies worth noting. Sure, works, I guess. And then we go down to pros and cons, and there's just nothing here. Very stable, does not stall in level flight. Okay. I don't think there's a single plane in this game that stalls in level flight. Engine protected from head-on attacks. Guys, just so you know, whenever somebody brings up survivability, you can just safely ignore it. Armor and all that kind of stuff doesn't matter in air modes. And by the way, he says this exact same thing 3 times. Engine protected from head-on attacks. Rear-mounted engine. Pusher aircraft. Engine mounted facing rear. Okay. Now, highly effective armament, sure, I agree with this. This is relevant, good job. Can take quite a few hits and still fly reasonably well. That doesn't mean anything, but okay. Very high energy retention. No, it's not. Easy to land thanks to its tricycle landing gear. I mean, this might be relevant in like simulator, but not in any other mode. Now this is really puzzling. Fuel tanks can take damage if you pull up from a dive on an enemy plane. What does that mean? Can somebody explain to me in the comments what this means, please? This is like the same thing with the J7W, where armament may explode. Required to set convergence. Okay, that's not a problem. Agility is quite poor. Well, it's not. The plane turns well, but it doesn't have the energy to keep turning. That's the problem. Now, the next 2 are actually fine and I have no problem with them. Engine overheats, yeah, that's true. Very low rip speed, true as well. Good job on that. And then the back of the aircraft is quite weak. Okay, sure. You know, most planes in this game fall apart if you shoot their tail, so nothing special here. So you see, the problem with articles like this one is that they are filled with information that seems relevant, but is actually not. So, as my examples have hopefully illustrated, the War Thunder Wiki is not to be trusted. To be fair, it's not all bad. There are decent pages, and there are bad pages, like the ones we have just covered. This creates a situation where this entire wiki is a huge noob trap. New players see that this website looks good and has pages that cover just about everything, and think that this is a good source of information. Then they stumble upon a page that was either written 10 years ago or by somebody who has no idea what they're talking about. As a result, the noob is now full of misinformation, which will definitely hurt them in the long run. Considering that this wiki is owned by Gaijin and is integrated into the game, this is unacceptable. Then again, it's not like they even know that their wiki is full of lies. And honestly, they probably don't care as long as it's not causing them any trouble. In a perfect world, this wiki would have a team of experienced players filling it with relevant information and filtering trash content that I have covered in this video. But this is not a perfect world. Now, why are videos taking so long, Mr. Linica? You see, there is this problem of very special drones flying over my head every single day and night, and it's been going on for God knows how long at this point. In-game, of course. Haha. My sleep schedule is all but ruined, my mental is struggling, and it can be hard to focus sometimes. But don't worry, I'm still here, and the content is coming. At least as long as I have electricity in my apartment. A little piece of advice. If your life is going great, or even decent, then enjoy it while you can. Trust me, it can always get a lot worse out of nowhere. And on that happy note, let me express my deepest gratitude to people who chose to support me. Hubstadt, Luminosity, Hidora, Florian, Subvision, and CEO of Getting Snailed. Thank you, and I shall see you all next time. Farewell.